Wolf Messing. How his unusual talent once turned into a curse. In 54 years I will no longer be here, and it will be late in the evening at 11 o'clock. Imagine this, how would you feel if you learned this about your future? I was shocked, I was literally gripped by animal horror, and then the idea came, why be afraid of this event? What if death is not an end, but only my new starting point? The Soviet pop artist Wolf Messing spoke about this in a letter to his good friend psychiatrist Franz Abel. Abel was the first researcher among those who established that Messing actually had clairvoyant talent. In messages written on the pages of the clairvoyance diary, he periodically wrote down his thoughts on the topic of the infinity of human life, religion, and the Lord, and about his hesitations between denial and newfound faith. Reflecting on the past, Messing noted that Mom and Dad always remained extremely religious people. My father considered the Lord to be demanding and quite strict, but at the same time he also perceived God as fair and honest. Naturally, I grew up as a believer. When I was 9 years old, my mother and father heard advice from a local rabbi to send me to study as a future clergyman. My parents were for it, but I protested and categorically denied this proposal. There were disputes, but then they stopped. It was then that the event that I dreamed about and that the clairvoyant recalled hoped for happened. One evening, little Wolf's dad sent him shopping to the store. Returning home, the teenager noticed someone's giant silhouette on the porch. He was dressed in white robes. The future clairvoyant decided that this was a messenger sent to him from above. The mysterious figure said majestically, "The path of your life should be directed towards service. The Lord awaits the prayers spoken through your lips." Young Wolf stopped in his tracks, deeply struck by this unusual event, and then lost consciousness on the spot. Waking up, he saw his worried mom and dad nearby. They were closely watching him. Messing shared his experiences, and in response his father asked, "Are you going to become a rabbi?" Young Wolf was forced to submit to this decision, but when his training to become a clergyman began, he met the very man who played the role of the supposedly divine messenger on earth. It turned out that his father gave him money and instructed him to play and deceive the boy. His father tricked him into making this decision, young Wolf thought. Since even a person dear to me acts in this way, who can I trust then? Everything said earlier turned out to be a lie, which means there is no God either, otherwise how could he allow such a thing, and he simply does not exist. Wolf Messing decided to run away and not continue his studies to become a clergyman, but he discovered that he had no money at all. In addition, at that moment he was very hungry to solve his problems. The young man even broke a mug to collect donations from parishioners, but there was too little money there. I committed these actions with the thought that since there is no Lord, everything is allowed to me. When I was already walking, I noticed farm plots near the road and dug up potatoes there. After starting a fire, I cooked baked potatoes. After that, I boarded the nearest train on the way to the final station in Berlin, I later told the clairvoyant. Since the young man did not have a ticket, he hid under a bench. Upon entering the compartment, the train began to move, and then the door in the compartment opened, plunging Wolf Messing into horror. Quote from Messing's book about himself. The conductor appeared, looked under the bench and asked a question, "Young man, show your ticket." I quickly picked up a small piece of old newspaper from the floor and handed it to the conductor. I wished with all my heart that the conductor would accept this dirty piece of paper as a real ticket. Immediately after this, a piece of newspaper was punched. The conductor looked at me in surprise, returned my improvised ticket to me and asked, "Why are you driving under the bench if you have a ticket?" This is how my skills first manifested themselves, inspiring thoughts in other people. In the German capital, an acquaintance was made between Wolf Messing and the researcher Abel. As a result, the psychiatrist came to the conclusion that Messing had clairvoyant abilities. Abel strongly advised his interlocutor to regularly and constantly upgrade his unusual talent. Remembering this, Messing said that every day he walked through the market and tried to hear the thoughts of the traders, striking them with the unusual skills of a clairvoyant. The famous Austrian psychologist Freud also knew Messing personally, and he once wrote the following words. Messing himself believes that his talent was received from the Lord, he calls it a divine skill. After arriving in Germany, young Wolf regained faith in the presence of the Creator, but in a different guise. The inspector told Abel the details. This message appeared the day Messing learned the exact date of his death. That morning when I woke up before sunrise, my heart was ready to jump out of my chest, the fear of what I saw quickly gave way to joy. Yes, I clearly felt happiness, because I knew that I would live for more than half a century. And who knows, maybe after this life will continue again. Sometimes they ask me if I believe in the Lord. I frankly admit that I do not recognize simple figures of speech about our Creator, but they are found in many world religions, the clairvoyant noted in his address to Abel. He also added, I only realize that the Lord exists. At the same time, God does not look like what is described on the canvases. It is impossible to understand, impossible even to imagine. Just as a person is not able to see the entire planet Earth while on it. With age, the clairvoyant changed his perception of his talent. Now he viewed his gift as nothing more than divine grace. Now he felt it as some kind of ordeal, a burden. Quote from the book The Magic of My Brain. It is known how Aida Mikhailovna lived her last days. She was Wolf's wife. Everyone remembered her as a very strong-willed and strong woman. At the same time, Wolf loved her very much and fulfilled all her requests. When she could not get out of bed due to illness, he personally helped her eat. The doctors tried to console Messenga, they told him that they would do everything possible to save his wife. However, the clairvoyant angrily interrupted the doctors, don't tell me this, I know the exact hour and day when Aida will die. This moment turned out to be the most difficult for him, to realize how it would end. At the same time, being unable to change anything. Now I have to leave completely. I'm sure of it. Everything will be over in a few hours. I would like to prevent this and hope for a miraculous salvation. But I have already accepted my inevitable fate. Don't listen to those people who claim that they are tired of life, because it is endless, but I will soon leave it. Goodbye and hello again, Aida. The clairvoyant noted in his last letter. Carl Jung said, I don't believe in God, but I know for sure that he exists. At the age of 68 I broke my leg and then had a heart attack. While I was in limbo between life and death, very unusual visions were born in my head. They rather foreshadowed the end of my life's journey. The famous psychiatrist and psychologist Carl Gustav Jung spoke about this in 1944. However, he managed to survive this winter. Doctors literally resurrected their psychologist colleague. And Carl Jung, who survived a state of clinical death, then spoke about what visions he was able to record when he found himself on the verge of near death. The knowledge that he experienced at that moment was very unsteady, illusory, and implicit, but at the same time they were not a dream. Truly amazing events unfolded before Jung. He rose into space and saw our planet Earth from there. She glowed brightly with a blue radiance, and this picture greatly shocked his imagination. Deeply struck by this magnificence, Jung began to carefully examine the surface of the Earth, ocean, mountains, and continents. As soon as he returned to life after psychological death, he tried to find out at what distance from our planet he needed to be in order to catch such a perspective. According to his records, he was located about 1,500 kilometers from the Earth. Admiring the incredible beauty of the planet, Jung suddenly felt that some unknown force began to pull him aside. He looked back and managed to notice how a giant block of stone rushed past him. It was also traveling through space. Then the picture changed very abruptly. I suddenly found myself near an ancient temple. Its outlines were carved into the rock. From there, from the outside, the realization came to me that as soon as I got inside this building, then secrets about my life and my personality would be revealed to me, and I would also learn some points from the future and from the past, Jung said. However, Jung was not destined to get into the temple. The doctor who treated him came down the steps to him, surrounded by golden light. When they found themselves on the same step, a conversation took place between them, conveyed only by thoughts. From this unusual conversation, Carl Jung realized that his doctor had been sent to him with information. He had no right to leave this world. After this, the doctor disappeared, and Jung was unable to enter the temple and woke up in the hospital. The nurse who cared for him said that during the loss of consciousness, Jung seemed to be enveloped in light. According to her, she had previously observed such a glow only in dying people. Jung recalled that he was very angry with the doctor who brought him back to life, because the world he returned to seemed like a burden to him after his magical journeys. Along with irritation, he felt anxiety, confident that the doctor's exit from the temple in the rock, symbolizing knowledge, foreshadowed his imminent death. After this, I tried hard to discuss the matter with the doctor, but he refused to understand me. I felt that I should have warned him to be more careful. I was absolutely sure that his life was in danger and my fears were ultimately justified. I turned out to be the last patient of this doctor. At the beginning of April 1944, the doctor who treated me became seriously ill and never got up again. I was informed that he began to have attacks of fever. He soon died from an infection in the blood. He was an excellent doctor. Until this moment, I had never discussed questions about life after death with other people, since I did not have any serious evidence for my thoughts. But now I want to speak out on this topic. Suppose that somewhere along the way I will make some mistakes, but I will still do it because I feel that this is my task, said the famous psychologist. Jung also argued that humanity currently does not have reliable evidence of the existence of life after death, but at the same time many people have accumulated experience and it forces people to think about this topic. Jung called this experience not conclusive evidence, but just a hint about the presence of a soul in a person. Jung recalled several incidents that he interpreted as hints of this. He once thought about the death of a friend whose funeral he had attended the day before. It seemed to me that my friend was now standing in the room and as if beckoning me to follow him. At first I decided that this was just a product of my wild imagination, but I still decided to follow him. We went out into the street, walked through the garden and found ourselves near the house where he lived. A friend took me to a room that I had never been to before. It was a library, the psychologist later recalled. Jung's friend stood on a chair and took one of the books from the top shelf. It had a red cover, and this vision seriously excited and interested Jung. So the next day he visited the house of his deceased friend and asked the widow to show him the library. Inside the room, the scientist saw 5 books with red covers in the closet. These were works authored by the writer Émile Zola. He took the second book and read the title of the red book, The Testament of the Deceased. According to Jung, this cannot be interpreted in any other way other than as confirmation that people have a soul. Jung took another hint when his wife's cousin died. The psychiatrist had a dream that his wife's bed suddenly transformed into a deep opening, from which emerged the figure of a woman in night clothes. After that I woke up and looked at my watch. They showed 3 o'clock in the morning. I instantly realized that such a dream foreshadows someone's death. In the morning we received news that my wife's cousin had passed away at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning. We, of course, do not understand what such dreams mean and what truth they hide behind them, because we must realize that we cannot be sure of things that go far beyond our limited understanding. If there is another world, then it follows completely different laws and is inaccessible to our current perception.